Fast forward to today, where the definition of family looks very different. Families can mean, well, almost anything now. Critics argue, though, that modern values emphasize independence over unity, weakening the family bond or the nuclear family. You see, the question is, are these new models progress, or are they a sign we've lost our foundation? Paige, I had to cut you off because we were a little bit tight on time in the previous segment. You had mentioned that there are some traditions that are okay to leave behind. What would those be in your head?
So I can't speak to everyone because I'm not a religious person. I know that a lot of my friends who did grow up in a very religious household and had very strict values with what their parents were instilling, what they should do when they grow up. And they almost feel now as an adult like their parents were almost trying to control the narrative and control their own journey. Whereas I believe my son can choose whatever path he wants, and I will unconditionally support him as long as he's doing so in good faith for himself and to grow and evolve as like a decent and respectful human being.
Absolutely. I feel like given how we have progressed as a society, interracial marriages, marrying who you love was a big no from many cultures and not just in the West. And I feel like as we're moving forward as a society, we should be open to allowing people who they want to marry. And you should appreciate your child for what they want to pursue as well. You know, in many cultural backgrounds, if a child is trying to pursue a certain career or a certain, a pathway, the parents will immediately shun that down. So I think these are some of the things that we should forget as society, especially as a first world country like Canada. These are main values that I think
you also have. I will say, just from how we grew up, completely different. You have a different cultural experience than what we do, or at least what I do. Growing up in North America, in Canada, it's a lot different than I can imagine growing up in Pakistan. One of the things I'm curious to ask. So we brought up religion, and not to make this a whole religious discussion, but it was a question that came into my head. Is it seems as if some of the values that we inherently all agree on are originally religious values. Do we agree or disagree?
I disagree with that. I don't think they're all religious values. I'd say they come from different places, different backgrounds. I don't think it's just religion that gives us the beliefs we have. Like right now, we're having an evolution. We don't only want to speak about religion, but for example, we had a lot of community in the past. Now we're seeing a rise in depression, isolation. And so that could be seen as a byproduct of individualism.
But where does individualism stem from, though?
The economic changes. Since, let's say, the Industrial Revolution, for example, we moved from these tight-knit communities into urban areas. We're focused on just wealth accumulation, not finding the deeper meaning in life, for example. Let's say they were doing that back in the past. So there are definitely economic and cultural changes, and those impact our family values that we have right now.
So are there, and I'm curious, are there any weakening, or are there any values that are weakening society, like values that we've lost in your guys' view?
I don't think it's necessarily a question of it being weaker versus stronger. I just think that it's no longer needed. So back in the day, in those times, maybe it was a foundation and those values were very important for us as a humanity to make that progress. But now I don't think it's necessarily needed. So therefore, we're kind of leaving those things behind.
I think it's a mix of both. And you folks are absolutely right. I don't think the Bible preaches on race. There's, God's not black or white or brown. So the fact that we've had differences of culture versus religion. Religion would preach one thing and then culture would preach a more extreme version of it. Like, I know Christianity and Islam have a lot of parallels to it, and that's what you wanted to talk about. In Islam, you're not forced to marry one race. You're open to marrying many different races. But within cultures, we've made those little pockets of who you can marry and who you can't.
You're saying culturally, we've really allowed our culture to influence.
Absolutely.
Huh.
Yeah. We don't have...
Does culture stem from religion, though? The cultures we build stem from religion?
It can.
Yes.
No. Like historically, I think they do. Yeah, that's actually really interesting. I didn't think about it that way. Okay, so let me ask this question. Let's bring it back a little bit because we have about a minute here. Schools, media, government, do they have any sort of role to play in the values, in supporting the values that we in, let's say, North America culturally should instill in our families? Should they have a role to play? We only have about 20 seconds.
Yeah. I'll jump in. I personally think no. but only if there is abuse involved within the family, then I think the government or the schools have every right to come.
Khalil, your thought really quick.
No, the focus should be on the family. There is a clear role for the state to play, but we shouldn't be focusing on schools to raise our children or the government to raise our children. It should be us as people.
This is a hot conversation right now, but we'll get into it a little bit more. Stay tuned for the final segment.